Yep.
Hello?
Yum.
Hello, and welcome to A Drink to the Past, the only podcast in the world where I drink this much beer all at once. Hopefully not all at once. I don't know. I'm going to start with this much, and we'll see where it goes. This is the second biggest mug to ever appear on this podcast.
They look almost identical.
Right?
In size.
Pretty close, but this one's slightly thinner, so I'm not sure actually how large this one is. Buddy gave this to me when I played the bagpipes at his wedding, and he was like, I will pay you in free food and a beer mug, and I was like, alright.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, not too bad. Alright. Chris, what you drinking today?
I'm drinking a good old standby, a graham cracker porter.
That's a good
it's
one.
tasting pretty good tonight.
Yeah, we all like that one. Nick, what you drinking?
Just a filthy Coors.
Filthy Coors! How dare you besmirch my podcast!
Well, that's what I'm here for. That's
Alright.
what I'm good for.
Taylor, what you drinking?
I am drinking a quality Guinness Extra Stout.
There you go. You guys are put to shame. Well, Chris's is fine. Yeah. Also, welcome back, Taylor. It's been quite a while since we've had you on the podcast.
It has been a while.
Yeah, that's been going to be a ton of fun. All right. So my beer of the week is the Logical Fallacy Stout from the Very Nice Brewery, which is up in Nederland, Colorado. So,
Ooh.
just up there, little mountain town in the middle of nowhere. It's an awesome place. And they have a very nice brewery. I know because that's the name of the brewery. That is like the best brewery name ever. And Logical Fallacy Stout. That's a good name for a stout. So yeah. All right.
Well, if you get too far ahead in drunkenness of me, maybe I'll break out the Jameson.
Sweet. All right. It'll be a contest. You been pre-gaming yet, or? I always have band practice before the podcast, so I'm usually pre-gaming at least one or two beers. So.
Yeah, no, I pre-gamed it by actually eating, so tomorrow morning I won't feel like crap.
Yeah, that helps. All right. That's pretty good beer. It's really good. Like an oatmeal stout kind of characteristics, so it's kind of heavy in the mouthfeel. Very good. I like that. Yeah. All right. So let's get into what you playing, which is the part of the podcast where we just talk about the random whatever video games we've been playing through the week. So, Taylor, you haven't been on in a while, probably since we started doing the what you playing segment anyways. So why don't you go first? What you been playing?
I've been playing whatever I have time for, but a lot of that right now is focused into Stellaris, which is kind of like a 4X space games, kind of like Civilization Space.
I've heard a lot of different people talk up that game. It sounds kind of neat.
It is really, really good, and it goes into a lot of the projects that I'm working on, so it helps to be able to actually play the game. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I definitely recommend for anybody who likes Civilization type games or Empire Management type games. It's a lot of fun, and there's so much to it. It's a very different game from when it first came out. It's got a lot of DLC and stuff, and a huge modding community, so
Sweet.
Definitely worth picking up.
Awesome. All right. Chris is obviously playing Minecraft right now. You can see him live on the stream if you're watching our YouTube version of this here podcast, and if not, then that's okay, because we like Podbean too, so listen to us wherever. Like and subscribe and all that jargon that I'm supposed to say at the start of every episode that I usually forget. I usually forget it, so I have to drink my drink card here, so you can drink along at home. If you're following the YouTube version, I'll give you a visual cue of when to drink. So Chris, what else have you been playing other than Minecraft?
Let's see. I started
Dead by Daylight, called it.
Mm-hmm. Been playing a lot of that too.
I started playing Kenshi again.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Oh, Ghost of Tsushima. That's another one.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Been hearing lots of good stuff about that one, too. I haven't got it yet, though.
I've been continuing to play Age of Empires 2.
Yes. Classics.
And I started playing, of all things, I started playing Skullgirls again.
Huh.
Which one?
The
The
What do you
latest
mean,
one
which
that
one?
just came out?
second Encore, or whatever it's called.
Oh, okay.
You didn't dig out your PS3?
No, I'm like PS3, pretty dead. I got it for Steam, so I've been playing that
There you go.
against her buddy Josh.
Nice. All right, Nick, what you been playing? Anything cool?
Nope. I haven't really been doing new stuff
Nope.
lately.
All
Besides Age of Empires 2.
right.
Definitive Edition.
Cool. I played a little bit of some of the Age of Empires games way back when. Not really my thing. I'm not big into any kind of real-time strategy, really, but they were kind of neat. They had, I thought the gimmick that you know go through the ages was kind of cool, but just kind of not really my game. So
Yeah, I know as a kid, my head was just too fuzzy to really grasp that game, but now that, I have a fully developed brain, I can actually play it with a modicum of decency, which is
Right.
nice. So it's like I'm playing it for the first time.
I
even
do.
though I had it as a kid.
I do tend to love real-time strategy games, even though I am so bad at them.
I grew up on them, so it's something that it's like living in my blood.
I grew up like next to them because my brothers were good at them, and so when I did play, I would
Right.
always like lose to my brothers, who are
That's not a good
4
experience.
and
I
8 years older than me, respectively. So
I
Yeah.
I
I had
understand
a
that
bit of the
experience.
mental advantage there, being so much older. I was just like, I don't know, like almost about to start making something cool, just trying to learn the game every time. I feel like, and then whoops, here's 7,000 Zerglings. Oh,
Okay, now that's just a rude person to play with.
Yeah, but
Tom
that's,
has been
that's
much
childhood.
more.
My brother being 8
think
years
that's
my
how-
senior.
I think
Kinda
that's
did the
how
same
brothers
thing.
work. Yeah,
Yeah, that's his brothers.
yeah. You learn by dying repeatedly. Having a brother makes every game Dark Souls.
It all makes sense now.
Yeah. All right. So myself, I got back into Doom Eternal a little bit, and not too much though, because I got distracted because I subscribed to the trial of Xbox Game Pass for PC, just to see if all that was kind of cool. And it's a pretty cool service because it's cheap and it's got a bunch of games. So I was like, there's several games on the list that I was thinking of buying anyway, and I was like, if I could try them all for $1 for the first month, then why not, right? So I first played Ape Out, which is a kind of a crazy little indie game where you're like some kind of ape just trying to escape from somewhere, and there's like
Not to be confused with Ape Escape.
not
I was just
yeah.
thinking.
no yeah
Go back to Codec Call in MGS3 where Snake talks to Zero about kind of like the reference. It was funny.
right.
I mean, my understanding of Ape Out is that it's more like almost Hotline Miami-esque.
I don't know, because I still haven't played Hotline Miami, but it's
Really?
yeah, that's another one of those on my list of, oh yeah, I should get around to that, shouldn't I? So
The second one's pretty good.
It's a very long list.
I played the Hotline Miami knockoff inside of Travis Strikes Again.
Okay.
It's
There's-
kind of the
there's
same,
also the
except
knockoff in
not
Payday
because
2.
it's still Travis Strikes Again. It's same gameplay, whatever game he's going into. It changes up the level design a lot, which ends up being really cool. I like that game for that, but it's probably not the same thing. But yeah, Ape Out is really cool, just because it's got the perspective kind of changes as you're going through the level, and so it's like got almost this kind of dynamic lighting system almost based on where you're positioned. So it's a really just a trippy game to look at graphically, and just rocking out with my headphones, just the soundtrack is killer. It's awesome. And then the other game that I tried out was Hellblade, which
Senua's
is
Sacrifice.
yeah, totally awesome, but it kind of gave me a kick
Trippy
in the
game.
butt and told me, hey, you need to upgrade your PC. Because I started it and it was like running probably 5 FPS. It was awful.
Good lord.
And I turned the graphics all the way down to low, and then it played like playably. Like usually 30-ish with dips. So I was like, it's not a great experience, but it's not the game's fault, it's my PC's fault. So I was like, even in these circumstances, it's like, it still is really fun to play. It's super engaging. I could not recommend it enough. And then it's weird though, because it's a fairly short game, because I got to pretty close to the final boss. I'm not sure if I was on the final boss or if there's like another boss after this. It's got more forms or something, but it just like, my computer would not have it anymore because I'm playing through this boss fight, and first the game just closed, and I'm like, what was that? That's weird. And then I booted it up again and tried the boss fight again, and my computer crashed. I was like, okay, Hellblade, I get what you're telling me. I need a new graphics card. It's okay. I'll suck it up eventually. So, that's one issue I have with PC gaming right now, is that I need to upgrade, apparently. So, but even so, it's like a great game, and I'm like, maybe I'll just buy it on PS4 so I don't have to worry about upgrading my stuff or something.
That's what consoles are for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
True.
All right, and I guess that takes us out of What You Playing, so we can get to the news and booze. So first of all, I guess we've all said what we're drinking already, so we can go ahead and do our good old beer reviews. Nick, what do you rate that Coors, you heathen?
18.
It's a scale of 3 to 17, Nick. It doesn't go to 18, and it's Coors. I know it's not that high. You trolling, bro. Or you're just really drunk. Like, if you're drunk enough to legitimately give it an 18, then my hat is off to you.
I wish
You're drunk enough to give Wars an 18?
No. Yes, maybe skip me. It's not the greatest.
Mm-hmm. All right, Taylor, what do you rate that Guinness on a scale of 3 to 17?
Guinness, I would say probably about a 14. It's not the greatest of beers, but it's no slouch either. It's good. It's nice and smooth. I wouldn't say it really gets you drunk. It's not a beer to really like get drunk with, but it's a good beer to have a social occasion with.
Yeah,
chat it up
or maintain it.
I love Guinness for that, because it's like it's available most places, and it's like coming from like big heavy craft stouts. It's like lightweight comparatively.
Yeah, definitely lightweight.
And your wife knows that you like it, so she buys it.
There you go.
My wife does buy me Guinness. You're on the podcast. You have to drink.
Go make me my drink then.
I'm hosting a podcast.
You can't really go wrong with an Irish
beer. It's just orange
beer.
Juice and vodka. You can make it yourself.
Oh, screwdriver.
Yeah, see? Nick knows what we're talking about. All right.
Jungle juice.
I'm a mixed drink guy, not a beer guy.
Right. Chris, what do you rate your graham cracker porter?
15. Graham cracker porter is always a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And my wife has now got a truly hard seltzer, which is, I'm told, better than the Bud Light ones.
Fuck yes.
Well, clearly your wife is amazing because she knows what she's doing. So
the Bud Light ones were like on sale or something.
Yeah, they were on sale and I had a coupon.
Yeah, and apparently they're not good. I'm like not into hard seltzer myself. But
it was literally the most bland thing I've ever drank, like other than water. And
but did it get you there?
But did it get you drunk?
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
probably tasted worse than water.
This is so much better.
My wife is drinking. You have to drink. It's the rules.
It's a rarity.
See, I drink when I choose to, which is all the damn time. So.
I play by the rules until I'm too drunk to play by the rules.
Right. I play by the rules as long as the rules are drink. Anyways, we were talking about news and booze kind of vaguely, and then we forgot to actually talk about the news and booze. So let's get into the news and booze. Oh, yeah, we were doing beer reviews first. So my beer, this is... I forgot what this was called already, and I closed the thing where I wrote down what it was called, but it's good.
Very nice brewery.
It is from
something logical.
Yeah, logical fallacy. There we go.
Logical fallacy.
Yeah, this is a really good stout. I'm going to give this 15.
All right.
Very, very good stout. So check them out. if you happen to be in a random mountain town in Colorado. That happens to be that particular random mountain town. Anyways, let's get into the news part of News and Booze. Bethesda has announced that Doom Eternal and Elder Scrolls Online are coming to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, and if you already got them, or if you buy them now on Xbox One or PS4, you get a free upgrade. So, that's kind of cool. I got my first PS5 game already. I own Doom Eternal.
I own Elder Scrolls Online and still have not touched it to this day.
Nice.
Adult.
My brother tried to get me into it for a while, and honestly speaking, like I love the Elder Scrolls series, and
Right.
I know at least one person I really, really do trust with gaming stuff has highly recommended it to me, especially as a fan of Elder Scrolls. It's hard for me to get into a new MMO nowadays, and I don't have the time to devote to it. And for a game like Elder Scrolls with the kind of lore that it has, I kind of have to possess it.
Still waiting for Elder Scrolls 6.
Me too.
We'll be
that
waiting.
that one I will.
We'll be
I will
waiting a
try.
while.
It's
Because
time.
every time I see like a tweet or something from Bethesda or whoever about Elder Scrolls, it's like, hey, there's a new Elder Scrolls, and I'm like, oh, it's Elder Scrolls, and they're like, expansion for Elder Scrolls Online. I'm like, no, wait, what? Fuck
Or
you,
Elder
man.
Scrolls Mobile.
Right?
It's the new
Yeah. Or
Half-Life
the
3. It's Elder Scrolls 6.
Here's the, because I gotta be a downer. Here's the pessimistic question: do we trust them after Fallout 76?
Yes.
not in online games.
Yeah.
Definitely not an online game.
I mean, in the single player realm, like they still make good stuff. Like Doom Eternal's pretty great. I don't think it's as good as Doom 2016, but like I like Doom Eternal. I like Doom 2016, obviously, and Rage 2 have been really good. I like all the other Fallouts that I've played. So, I don't know. One game
that's
doesn't
definitely.
like everybody makes a screw up. I mean, you know, in theory.
I'd say it's the same kind of argument that a lot of people have against Blizzard Entertainment, which I don't personally agree with per se. Is
you don't
like,
want to get me
yes.
started on Blizzard.
Oh, and you know what? And to each their own. Like if that's your opinion, that's your opinion. I'm not going to fault you for it. But like
You should.
the whole, dropping into a game into a company because they make a mistake or 2 or 3 mistakes or whatever it's a little rough because you have a whole lineup of times where they didn't make those same mistakes. And I gotta say, like Bethesda, while they've definitely had kind of like a shittier, I can swear on the show, right?
Yeah.
When they got
yeah, it's fine. You can swear on the show.
when they,
Chris was the guy that
they
made that rule.
They definitely had a kind of a crappier way of dealing with situations. And certain approaches to video game obviously has not been the greatest on their part, but considering the lineup of games that they've had that are successes and really good games and good experiences compared to, say, the 1 or 2 experiences that haven't been so good, I can't really fault Bethesda as a company for that. I can really only fault the decision-making process that went into that one game. So will I trust that they can make Elder Scrolls 6 and make it really good? Absolutely. Will I know until it comes out? Absolutely not.
Yeah. Let's move on to our next piece of news and booze here, because we've got quite a lot with the PlayStation thing coming up. But next piece of news and booze is Halo Infinite will have free-to-play multiplayer. What do you think
Should
about
be.
that?
So
Should
the
be
word
free to play. I don't know why
free to
it's an
play,
announcement.
the word free to play gives me anxiety.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a little
Attached to a paid
leery
game.
about it, but at the same time, I'm like, sweet, I don't have to buy Halo to play Halo. That's kind of cool. But
Oh, that's what the announcement means. Okay, I was like, wait a minute, multiplayer in a Halo game is free to play. I mean, isn't that how it's always supposed to be?
right, yeah, no, it's so it's like, Fortnite or something, but just for the multiplayer. It sounds like you've still got to buy the game, or if you're subscribed to Xbox Game Pass, then it will just be added to the Game Pass collection. So there's that. But to play just the multiplayer, you can just download it and play it, which I am a little leery of that because just that business model makes me assume that there's going to be some kind of microtransactions, and I'm like, is it going to be for just aesthetic shit? And then I'm like, I don't care, right? If it's just aesthetics, whatever, go nuts. But if it's like, oh, you can only have one item, or you can, pay $2.99 to hold 4 grenades instead of 2, then I'm gonna call bullshit on that. So, so it's like hard to tell exactly before it actually comes out or they announce their full business model whether or not this is as shady as it could be, because a lot of free-to-play models are really shady, but it's not clear whether or not this one is yet.
Then we shall play in the shade.
I think we kind of have to tread carefully.
Bad pun,
with
that
the
means
whole...
we have to drink.
Hell yeah.
It's the rules, I don't make them up. I'm kidding, I totally make up the rules.
I
They're
think
all made up.
I think we have to be careful when talking about free-to-play models being shady and such, because at the end of the day, these companies do still have to make money.
Yeah.
And having worked for the video game industry in various ways over the course of my lifetime and career, I definitely know that there are some shitty ways of doing it.
Yeah.
However, there's also sometimes it comes into play where it's like, we still have to develop this game. You still have to look at the game as a business choice, as a business opportunity, and a product. And at the end of the day, obviously, there are certain things that should not be done with how free-to-play games work. But on the other hand of the spectrum, they still have to make money somehow.
Yeah.
And these games are still developed. There's still work put into them. And you can't look... And obviously, in the case of Halo Infinite, I think, sales of the single-player game are really what's meant to drive that. And so I wonder if there's going to be microtransactions beyond, say, the aesthetics of it.
Yeah, because I don't know, because I kind of play Halo more or less equally for the story as well as the multiplayer.
I don't.
But
I've never
I feel
played
like
Halo
there's
except for Halo, the multiplayer, so
Yeah,
I'm right there with.
Yeah, but I feel like generally people play it more for the multiplayer. But I could be wrong. I'm not totally sure. But that's the feeling I get with a lot of people, is that they're more there for the multiplayer.
With Halo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with Halo specifically, there's so many multiplayer games out there already. The only thing that's going to set it apart is its universe that you're playing in.
Mm-hmm.
I think later Halo games that may apply too, since people were not so happy with 343 Industries' take on the Halo series.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think from like Halo 1 through 3, a lot of people played Halo because not for the multiplayer. That's what kept them interested. But
Yeah.
the game itself, a lot of them played for the story.
Yeah.
And like, there's so many devoted Halo story fans out there.
Mm-hmm.
And me being one of them. Like, I've never really enjoyed Halo for the gameplay specifically. I've always enjoyed Halo for its universe.
Yeah. So speaking of Halo, go ahead,
That's
Chris.
actually something I have difficulty understanding is
Halo?
that no, and enjoying a game not for its gameplay but for its story.
I'm a writer. That's why I can do it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like for me, gameplay has to be like
Playable.
Yeah, it still has to be fun at the end of the day, because like I've had games with like good stories that like the gameplay isn't all that great, that I'm just like,
let me ask you this.
I have games like Metroid Other M is a weird one for me, that I love the gameplay in that, and the story is terrible, but I'll still play it all day because it's fun.
Let me ask you this for the fact that you say you don't understand it, but like, let's compare games. So like Halo 1 and Ocarina of Time. Now, Ocarina of Time revolutionized a lot of things in terms of gameplay for video games as a whole. Halo 1, you can't make that same argument. Halo 1, I'm going to be quite frank here, was not revolutionary in almost any way, apart from it having a fully realized story that was not as prevalent back then, except with series like maybe Fable or Zelda, that kind of stuff.
Or any Final Fantasy.
Right, any Final Fantasy. So, like, apart from those major series, like, most games you played for the gameplay, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
And Halo 1 really was just a mishmash of, every shooter out there that you've ever played. Doom, it was a big one. I want to say, like, outside of I think the multiplayer was the big thing. I think the multiplayer of Halo 1 was not necessarily revolutionary, but it was definitely something that caused a lot of people to start thinking about multiplayer being a core component of their games.
It was the next iteration of GoldenEye.
Right. And I will say too, like Halo 1 wasn't really the biggest proponent of that. It was really more along the lines of Halo 2 being a proponent of that. But yeah, you play Halo 1, and honestly speaking, like when I played through that game, I was like, this is really just a whole mishmash of shooters I've already played, and I enjoy it. It wasn't a bad game by any stretch of the imagination, but there's nothing revolutionary done about it. So I was like, the gameplay, cool, it was fun, it was playable, it was good. But what grabbed me, the story. Wow, like there's a lot of this stuff. Yes, it's tried and true science fiction tropes and things like that, but it was done really well, and it grabbed me. That's what kept me playing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Halo, Master Chief Collection is going to have crossplay later this year, plus keyboard and mouse support on Xbox One, and matchmaking that matches controller players with other controller players, and keyboard mouse players with other keyboard mouse players, so as to theoretically balance the respective playing fields. So I think this is kind of interesting, because having got Master Chief Collection last month, and been playing a bit of online with a controller on the PC version, I do okay with a controller. I don't think it makes as much difference as PC people like to claim. Like, I'm sure that it makes some amount of difference at super high competitive levels, but in random online matchmaking, I feel like it doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, For Honor comes into the same question for that, because if you play For Honor on PC, you can use a controller for that too, which is what I do. I use controller, I don't use mouse and keyboard. Mouse and keyboard for that kind of game is just super clunky to me. But the argument definitely can be made that it does make a difference, because, if you play For Honor with mouse and keyboard, you can definitely react to stuff a lot quicker than you can with controller. But at the end of the day, like in most matches, not going to make a whole bit of difference.
Right, yeah. It's like, if you have a good controller player and a good keyboard and mouse player, I feel like they're going to be closely matched most of the time. Maybe the keyboard and mouse will have advantages in certain scenarios, but especially in games like Halo, I don't think it's all that important, because Halo is not a big tactical shooter. Like, unless you're exclusively playing in, like, SWAT or something, then then you probably have then you might have a distinct advantage, but still, it's like, I don't know, especially in Halo, I don't think it's a huge thing. But I am excited about the crossplay, because my brother's got it on Xbox One and I got it on PC, so now I can play with my brother, and that'll be great, because I have, like, replaying all the Halo games since I bought Master Chief Collection. I've just been like, I don't want to drive the Warthog. I want to sit in the gun turret. Damn it. So.
Oh, argument for Stellaris. For those of you who haven't played it yet, you can totally recreate the Halo universe with that game, and it's great.
Nice. All right.
The Stellaris is very versatile with how it implements sci-fi tropes. Even have Dyson swarms in their practical.
I created ring worlds at the core edges of the galaxy, and like different corners of the galaxy. It was just like I claimed that they were the installations from Halo. Great.
But could they shoot the whoop all life in the galaxy?
No, I needed to get a Titan for that.
Oh.
But it still worked. Still irradiated the crap out of a world.
Next piece of news and booze, Microsoft xCloud will be launching September 15th exclusively on Android. I didn't see that coming. I was like, I thought it would come to, Xbox and PC, but it's coming to Android first. So I think that's kind of neat. I'm guessing that this is some amount of them, like, I feel like they have to be fairly confident that this streaming game service will work well on mobile, and if they show off that in a way that, like, catches wind, I feel like it'll do really, really well on the mobile platform. And if it does really well on the mobile platform, then I can only imagine it'll probably do better once it comes to PC and console. So,
no, actually, I could really see that taking off, because I know a lot of people struggle with their home internet, for streamers especially, because upload speeds are so crap in various areas of the country.
Yeah.
mobile connections may be superior and enable people to stream who couldn't before.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so I think I want to give it a try when it comes out and just see if it's, like, it can't be worse than Stadia, so I'll take it, probably. You know, I'll see how it is, and I'll let you guys know. But an interesting just note on this, that it's not launching on Apple, and apparently Apple's press release about that was like, oh, we don't have the time to review all of the games on the service to make sure they meet our quality standards. And I'm like, BS, you're Apple, you have fuck you money. Right? If they wanted this
if they have
on their...
fuck you money, if they spend it all saying fuck you.
Yeah, but
In
like...
polite terms.
If...
Like, we don't
like,
have
to
time
me,
for
the
you,
fact that
bitch.
they aren't going out of their way to, like, make this competitive with Android kind of says to me that they just don't want the service on their phones, which to me is, like, a big... I think that's stupid. I think, like, it's easy money, you know, because they're just making money from Microsoft, you know, putting it on their platform, theoretically. And
Or maybe they're just bad and they're still running on, you know, the gas that Steve Jobs left in the brilliance tank.
something.
And they haven't added
Yeah.
anything to it since then.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't use Apple anyway, so not really going to be my problem, but
I'm an Apple man, so I'm crying.
you can't play Xbox games on your phone, and I can. Ha!
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'll play it on my actual PC.
That'll work better. Probably,
Right.
I'm certain. Anyways, then there was an inexplicable Pikmin 3 Deluxe announcement. Nobody saw that coming. I mean, everybody saw that coming. It's been rumored for years.
Wait, there's never a Pikmin 3?
Yeah, there was a Pikmin 3 on Wii U. Nobody knew about it because it was on Wii
Who
U.
bought the Wii U?
I did.
Yeah.
Just me. I was the
I almost
guy.
feel bad because I
with
missed
a
so
Wii
many
U.
games I actually like.
Right?
College.
Cool egg.
Yeah, so Pikmin 3 I thought was pretty good when it came out. I didn't play a ton of it. I'm not like my wife did. She's yelling at me. Yeah, like, go Pikmin!
I love the Pikmin games.
Yeah, Pikmin 3 was
Awesome.
pretty fun. You know, lots of fun little puzzles and exploration and stuff, so...
It's a fun game for Satanists, too, because you must sacrifice your Pikmin at certain points to progress.
Yeah,
For the greater good.
that's a
Well,
great way of
Satanists
looking
are
at
all about self-empowerment, so you can
Right,
apply
you
that to
empower
a
all
lot of
of them.
things.
That's true.
In fact, by that extension of logic, most games are Satanist. You kill things and absorb their power for
Why do you
your
think-
goals.
Never mind, I'm not going to take care of it.
Nick, all I'll say is, you don't want to know how much of actual arguments I've read about shit like that.
Yeah. Welcome to video game journalism.
Alright, so here's a funny one. A well-known Irish author named John Boyne apparently accidentally used a recipe from Breath of the Wild when one of his characters was explaining how to make dyes for dressmaking. So
Can someone play the Nelson Muntz laugh?
that would be pretty good. Yeah, so apparently this guy was like did a quick Google search and just put it in his book of like how to make red dye or whatever it was for the whatever kind of dye it was, and it's like he cited the ingredients as key swing, silent princess leaves, Hylian shrooms, and several other little things from Breath of the Wild. So this is literally published in his new book, The Traveler at the Gates of Wisdom. So pre-order your copy before Nintendo gives him a cease and desist. I think this is fucking hilarious.
I don't even know what they'd cease and desist him about. I don't know if that breaks copyright or trademark.
I'm not sure if it
might
does,
not.
but Nintendo is the kind of people that like puts the kibosh on fuck everything. So
I feel like they're going to try and then fail, but they have to try to protect their copyright.
If it's a, if
That-
it's
that's
a
how
single
trademarks
passage-
work, but
Yeah.
it shouldn't have anything to do with trade. I don't think it has anything. I'm not a lawyer,
Right.
but I don't think it has anything to
What?
do with trademark.
I thought you were a lawyer.
If it's a single passage, it's likely it would likely be more under fair use than anything else. But I, as a writer myself, like I can definitely identify with this guy in terms of having to use Google sometimes to look up stuff that we have no knowledge about but need to portray knowledge of in a novel.
Oh, so he did it
Yeah.
on accident?
Yeah, that's
it was
what
not
it said.
intentional.
Was he was just pretty much like looking up because the character had to make a red dress or something, and was telling this other character how to make dye. And it's like, oh yeah, you just put a key swing into the Hylian shrooms.
Yeah.
I'm like,
But how did he not recognize what a Hylian shroom was?
apparently
Well,
he doesn't
not
play
everybody
video
doesn't
games.
play
I
video
guess. I
What the
don't know.
fuck is a keese? Like, that's
Yeah.
not a bird. Is it a bird? Is it kind of
there were
bad
definitely,
bird?
Oh god.
definitely some indicators that he might have been on the wrong track. But I got
He's in a rush.
I do applaud the guy's response to it when he found it all out. And he
Apparently
tweeted, "Well, I'm leaving this in because I gotta own up to my bullshit."
Yeah, there was a like conversation. Somebody interviewed him about it when they found out, and he was like, "Yeah, you know what? This is so funny. I'm just gonna leave it there. I don't even care." So he seems to be like taking this in a jovial mood. He's like, "Yep, I did something stupid, and I'm leaving it. I don't care." So I'm like,
All right, my hat's off.
I'll drink to that guy.
Yeah, I'll drink to that.
He's a true tried and true Irishman, taking it in stride.
There you go. Taiwanese rating board has posted a rating for No More Heroes 1 on Nintendo Switch. So that's a potential clue we might be getting a port of No More Heroes 1 for Nintendo Switch, which was in a interview a while ago with Suda51. He said that he was in talks to develop ports of the first and second games before. I think that was like right after No More Heroes 3 was announced. So, yeah.
Well, at the very least, Taiwan's getting it.
Yeah, right? I'm like, that's pretty much an indicator of that. But I'm just like, so they're going to bring it to America, right? Because that would be a weird game to only produce in Taiwan.
There is a
Stranger
lot of
things
people.
have happened. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just love No More Heroes, and I want to buy it. If it comes out, I'm buying it. So that's how that works. Anybody else? No More Heroes?
Hell yeah! I talked about it.
Don't
a
even
lot.
know what that is.
It's one of the best games you'll ever play on the original Wii.
Yeah.
I don't have a Wii.
You're a
Well,
failure.
fortunately, with this port, you will not need one.
I was like, what about the
Hooray!
time we played Wii in your basement? And then I remembered, oh yeah, I brought
My
my
basement?
Wii over.
My basement.
I think it was your basement. Maybe it was Rianne's
You've never
basement.
been to my basement, Mr. Shaw.
None of us have ever been to Nick's basement.
I thought we went
It's
to
done.
Nick's house once or twice. But it's possible that it's somebody else's house. Anyways, then I did realize that, in fact, wherever we were, I brought my Wii. So I was like, yeah.
Well, there you go.
Except for at Chris's house, because Chris has a Wii.
Yeah. I have
Yeah.
2 Wiis.
2 Wiis.
Double
One of
shotgun.
which works.
Double fist.
All right, I'll drink to double fisting.
So much Wii.
If I
That's 2 fists in the air. Yeah, right. Moving on.
Super Smash Brothers update 1.8, no, 8.1. Bleh. I'm sorry, it's a slip of the tongue. I have to drink.
You just finished drinking.
I'll drink to that. Smash Brothers Ultimate Update 8.1. I almost said it wrong again. Randomly happened last week, so it includes a new stage, which is Small Battlefield, which is just kind of neat. So I booted it up just to see, and it's like Battlefield but smaller. It's like it's only got 2 platforms instead of 3.
it was alright.
I'm like,
the name wasn't wrong.
right? Yeah, I'm like, I'm not sure why this has to be a thing, but sure, okay, I'll take a free update. Right, why not? And the other thing, there's a couple of little balance changes that I didn't really look at because I never look at the balance changes. I'm not going to stop playing Ike. But you can now select any of the 1,200 plus music tracks to use on any of the Final Destination or Battlefield style stages. So that's cool. you can now actually use all of the music on those stages. I'm like, that's pretty sweet.
As opposed to the same song over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah. So, random little free update. All right, and let's go into the biggie. So I'm going to go this a little bit rapid fire because there's a whole bunch of stuff for the PlayStation State of Play, which was yesterday. They announced beforehand that they were going to have no new PS5 announcements, only some PSVR and some known PS5 games and some new PS4 stuff. So I thought that was kind of nice that they kind of tempered expectations, because I went into this expecting nothing, and that's more or less what I got. There's a couple of neat things in here. But Crash Bandicoot 4 was how they kind of kicked things off, so anybody into Crash Bandicoot?
Love me some Crash.
Nice. I've always, like...
It's about damn time is what I gotta say.
Right? Yeah, I've kind of been eyeing this series like from the side the entire time. Like when I was a kid, I was just like, I thought Crash looked so fun, but I didn't have a PlayStation for part of my childhood, and then when I did, I like could only get a handful of games. You know how being a kid and allowance is and stuff. So I had like I was more of a Spyro guy than a Crash guy. Hitman 3 is coming out for PlayStation VR. It's kind of neat, killing people in virtual reality. So you can get more into the mind of a murdering guy. Yeah, well, looks neat.
For
like
money,
there wasn't that much.
It's very different.
There wasn't that much gameplay.
Job.
It looks
He's a
okay.
professional.
Right? Yeah.
It's like for business or for pleasure. They're completely different.
Yeah.
Do you murder for pleasure or do you murder for business? Different tone.
Braid Anniversary Edition is coming
Enjoy
out.
my work.
So it's the same game as the original Braid, but everything has been hand repainted for the 2020 run release of this game. So it's going to be the 15-year anniversary of the original release of Braid. I really liked this game, but I feel like the sprite work was really cool, and particularly the main character looks kind of weird in all the original artwork, and I liked his sprite better than I did the actual art, and now it looks like the actual art, so it's kind of weird. But other than, like, all the environments and stuff, I think look fantastic. Just the hand-painted look of them is phenomenal. Anything else on that? Okay. The Pathless was the next announcement. Actually, this was my favorite announcement of the show. It's coming out on PS5, I think next year, they said. So it's this fast-moving archery game. Looks like it's open world. And you got an eagle that you can use like a paraglider, but it can flap. So, like, you can, like, literally fly with it to some extent. And as you go through the game, it, like, upgrades so you can fly more. So this looks really cool. Just the art style is totally trippy. I'm digging it.
While I was watching this presentation, watching that, I too agree. This is one of my favorite. It's actually my second favorite. I think you're about to get to my favorite one.
Okay.
But the Pathless definitely looks really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And I was thinking myself while watching, I was like, even if this wasn't a game that I personally like would be my style of game to play, it is easily one I could totally watch someone playing and be totally invested in and watch the game. I love it and enjoy it. I will say, though, all the PS5 games that they showed off during this presentation look like they could have been done on PS4. It's really weird, and I think that's mostly due to me having recently played Ghost of Tsushima and seeing what the PS4 is really, truly capable of.
Right,
from a
yeah.
graphics standpoint.
That's kind of where
Like,
I am,
looking
like,
at
with
it.
some of the... Because some of the higher-end PS4 games are, like, ridiculously good-looking.
Yeah.
And, like... I feel like the high end of PS4 is better looking than the average PS5 game that we have announced at this point. And
That's what I say.
Yeah.
And I think we're running into a situation that the Xbox ran into, where the Xbox 360 got pushed out before the Xbox was really done. Like, a lot of game developers have talked about this over the years, and where they wish that 360 had waited a couple of years because the Xbox really hadn't reached its full potential yet. And a lot of people were saying that, technically speaking, the Xbox was capable of doing a lot of what many of the early to mid game releases of the 360 had done. And I'm beginning to think about the PS4 the same way, especially after Tsushima release. I was like, is the PS5 really necessary at this point? Because it seems like there are still things devs are kicking out from the PS4 that we've never seen before, that we haven't seen the true scope of.
Yeah, because I've been hearing a lot of that about Ghost of Tsushima, as well as like a couple of other games from just this year, Final Fantasy VII Remake and The Last of Us Part 2 are all, like, all three of those I have heard praised as the best looking game of all time. And I'm just like...
How many times have you heard that before?
I mean, a lot, but, I feel like you could make a compelling argument for any one of them, because they all kind of have a different thing going for them graphically. Or
Horizon Zero Dawn, which released, 3 years ago?
Yeah, that was same year as Breath of the Wild, so 2017.
Yeah. Like, that game looked phenomenal on the PS4. And as much as I really didn't care for the game itself, like, visually, you can't argue how good that game is at all.
Yeah.
I would argue 100% Ghost of Tsushima is probably the best looking video game on the market right now.
Yeah.
I'd say the Dwarf Fortress looks better.
Fair. It's not bad.
You like those ASCII
I feel like
graphics.
that's a different kind of a rabbit hole we could go down, because, what makes a game look good? Is it, hyper-realism or stylization or whatever? Because, obviously you could... I mean, I've heard the same thing about, Octopath Traveler and Breath of the Wild and any number of things that just... They take it in a different direction, and it works for them. And
Ghost, I think, combines the best of both worlds. There are moments where it looks hyper-realistic, and then there are moments where it is definitely very stylized, but done in a very visually pleasing way.
I feel like that's why I love the graphics in Final Fantasy VII Remake so much, is that, a lot of them are, hyper-realistic, but they're still stylized enough that when people are doing, totally impossible bullshit, you don't question it.
Yeah. No, 100%.
It doesn't hit Uncanny Valley.
Right, and that's the question of, how intentional is that and how unintentional is it for that? Because there are definitely some games that actually absolutely intentionally go for the Uncanny Valley, and then there are others where they're just like, oh, we didn't mean to do that, but hey, it works.
Right, yeah.
Wait, there's people who intend to do it?
I mean, if you play Detroit Become Human, they actually talk about the whole Uncanny Valley thing and how the very first androids in that story hit it too close, and so the game itself makes reference to it, and it's actually
Yeah, right. So
I just don't see that coming up.
Go on to the next PlayStation announcement. Here was Spelunky 2. Is coming with online multiplayer as well. So
this was my favorite announcement of the whole thing.
I'm overgasped.
Yeah, I didn't play the original Spelunky, but it's one of the games that it's one of those things that you just never hear anything but positive stuff about. So it looked neat. I'm not over the moon about it, but it looks neat. And the other one, like I said, just only positive things. So hopefully, I might check it out. I might not. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I think it looks really cool, and from not having played the first one, it kind of came out of left field when I saw it. I was just like, whoa, this game looks incredible. I gotta play this.
Okay, has anyone here played Spelunky besides me?
Yes, me.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. it's just you and me. Derek, you wrote a whole book about it, even. About the design of Spelunky.
Goodness.
But look, that's half of the podcast. So you guys aren't alone.
Goodness.
Yeah. Next thing was Genshin Impact, which looked surprisingly like Breath of the Wild, but more anime-y.
I said the same thing when I saw that. I was like, this is a Breath of the Wild copy.
It's like if you made Breath of the Wild, but everybody was even more trope anime character-y, and it's multiplayer.
You know what? It looked
bad.
like Breath of the Wild and Breath of Fire had a baby. and I was
Good way of putting it.
I was like, you know what? This is actually cool, but I probably will not end up playing this
Yeah,
game.
I'm like not totally sold on it, but it looks neat. Aeon Must Die is some sort of futuristic-looking fighting game. It's like, take it or leave it. Anno Mutation M, some kind of cyberpunk action game. Looked kind of like a neat... It's got some platformy elements and stuff like that. Looks okay.
I think Cyberpunk's gonna have all the cyberpunk stuff I need.
That's
I'm
probably
not
true.
playing that game either.
Bug Snacks got a new trailer. Still looks weird and pointless to me. I'm just not enthralled with anything that Bug Snacks is doing.
I think it was cute, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, stylistically it doesn't look terrible, but it just like I don't understand the point of it, and it's like,
What is Bug Snacks?
It's like Pikmin, but not Pikmin.
kind of because
So
you're
Ant-Man?
like finding
Ants them
bugs
things,
that
Tom
are
Hanks.
like food, but they're bugs.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to describe it. It's just kind of
So
weird looking.
So you're
And I don't
you play
understand the
this
purpose.
journalist- You play this journalist or reporter who's like heard legends of this island or whatever that has a bunch of bugs that are called bug snacks, and you're supposed to go there and basically report on it. And you end up getting there, and so a whole bunch of villagers who are there who like either own these bugs or encounter them regularly, and you end up basically having to help them either capture them in some way or like figure them out. It's really weird but oddly interesting in some aspects.
Sounds like a palate cleanser, if nothing else.
It's like Pokemon Snap, Pokemon, and kind of sort of Final Fantasy in some ways, like all mixed mashed together. And it's really weird.
Next
Postmodernism of video games.
announcement was Vader Immortal, which is a PSVR Star Wars game releasing August 25th. And I was like, I feel like if you told me about this game and I didn't watch the trailer, I would have been like hyped for it. But like watching the trailer, I was just like, eh.
I'm so upset
I just,
about that stuff.
it's like the most generic looking, you use the Force and a lightsaber kind of VR game I could possibly imagine. Doesn't look awful, but it looks like, why bother? I'm not going to buy a PSVR for it.
That's how I feel about most VR games.
That is how I feel about most VR games, yeah. It's,
And I hate that they're tarnishing Star Wars and its brand and it's everything that's good about Star Wars with stuff like this. It just makes me upset, and it's just indicative of what Disney thinks about Star Wars as a whole.
Control is getting DLC on August 27th. I haven't played Control, but everybody tells me it's good. Anybody played Control?
I know nothing.
Yeah.
Auto
What?
Chess looks like a slightly more complex version of Clash Royale to me, is what I put in my notes here. It's like chess, but like your guys like move and do stuff, and you can summon new guys later in the turn. And it literally looks like Clash Royale to me, gameplay
They
wise.
do
But
stuff?
yeah,
Whoa.
it's weird. The Pedestrian was a kind of a weird looking game. Looked kind of neat, but like weird. Some kind of puzzle game where you try and get a stick figure from one road sign to another.
It's a very platformer meet puzzle game.
Hood Outlaws and
Mario, but realistic.
yeah.
Ish.
Hood Outlaws and Legends is coming to PS5 in 2021. You break into a castle and steal some shit, but maybe there's some rival guys trying to steal the same shit.
The shame shit?
The same shit.
I'm ashamed of this shit.
I don't know. This looks like another video game that just doesn't need to exist.
Yeah, I was like,
I don't know what the point
there's
is.
a concept there, I think. Temtem had a trailer. It's Pokemon, but it's on PlayStation and it's online.
So this okay.
It's
this
also
again
coming to
brings me
Xbox,
back-
though.
It brings me back to something that we're talking about earlier with like copies, and Temtem much like there's another game coming out. I forget what they call it, what the name of it is, but it's like literally a Civilization copy except with different graphics. And I'm like, either video game companies are just really running out of ideas, or they literally just want to capitalize off of, you know, the stuff that works, and they have no originality whatsoever. I looked at Temtem throughout it, and I just couldn't stop seeing Pokemon. I was like, this.
What I felt
there's
like
nothing
from the
original
first
to this.
trailer, as well as this one. I'm just like,
It's Pokemon, but MMO.
Pokemon.
Which, to be honest, to be fair, Pokemon but MMO, if Nintendo's not going to do it, someone was going to do it and profit off it.
Yeah,
That's
that's a
fair,
pretty fair
but
assessment.
like, if it's not actual Pokemon, it'll just feel like it's like, why couldn't it be actual
Rip-off.
Pokemon? Right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, what's better, Temtem but MMO Pokemon or Pokemon Go? Like, those are your options.
I mean,
I would rather have Pokemon Go, to be honest.
I
because at
actually
least,
like
you know, that
regularly
concept
play
was-
Pokemon Go still.
It's kind of an apples and oranges comparison.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I would say I would rather have Pokemon Inc. come out with an MMO, even though I know it's probably not going to happen. I would rather see them do it than have some company just randomly knock off their product and then try and sell it as their own. When in reality,
You
just
snooze, you lose. Oldest rule in the book.
no. But it's not you snooze, you lose. Like literally, you could have almost a copyright claim on this product. It's the same thing with the new.
Well, you know,
You could.
Nintendo tried to copyright sanity meters.
I do.
Okay,
I do want to. I do want to point this out. No, you would not have a copyright claim on a game like Temtem.
You would
That's
have
because, and this is like something that's been pretty thoroughly settled in copyright claims against games in the past through
Right.
games that have been much closer in terms of being ripoffs.
well. That's the fun thing about law is that just because a precedent has been
Again, not-
doesn't mean that it's not going to go through. Like, I mean, authors across the world have been hit with copyright claims for less and been screwed by it. So I don't know. Like,
That's
it could be.
the real issue is not having money to fight it. It's
Oh
it,
yeah,
It has nothing to do with the legal status of the thing. Again, not a lawyer, but
from a creative standpoint, I just look at it and I'm like, for shame, because you don't need to rip something off completely and be so unabashed about it, and actually just come up with your own shit. And because you can, there are how many games that try and do the Pokemon thing, you know, and have at least original ideas. I mean, you could argue that Monster Hunter and Pokemon were both born from the same concept, but did things very, very differently.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like they could have gone to the same well without being the almost exact same product with a different look. You know what I mean?
Well, ultimately, if you're right in your assessment, that game will fail, and it will be replaced by something that succeeds.
Fair. And from my standpoint, this is a game that I will completely pass up on because of that.
All right. Last announcement of the PlayStation State of Play was Godfall, which we've known about for a while, and I think this was a really strange thing to kind of end on, because it's like, it's already known, we already have gameplay of it, we already have, like, we've seen a ton of this game. I'm like, why didn't you end on Crash? Crash is like a much bigger announcement, and you started with that instead of ending with it. I don't know. It seems...
you know, you gotta end kind of meh. Gotta end meh.
Yeah.
I don't think they had a plan really. So like you're saying that Crash 4 was the best way to end it, but then how would they start it? Because they obviously from a marketing standpoint they want to start with a bang, and obviously they want to end with a bang too. But I don't think they really had anything to end with.
Yeah.
You know.
But I don't know. I feel like in general you should put your strongest point last. You know, that's something that like.
Fair enough, but then you also run into the issue of, well, if you don't start
But
with a bang,
if you don't have anything
how are you gonna
worthy
keep
of
people
starting with a
interested for
bang,
that
then
30
why did you make this presentation in the first place?
So
There's
we're
our
discussing
argument.
optimal bangs per period of
Right,
time.
yeah. I don't know, because like I didn't
we're
think
running into the
most of the
pandemic
I didn't think any of these things were like bad announcements, but I guess I kind of see what you're saying with there wasn't any, like, WoW announcements, but I don't know.
It's the pandemic issue, I feel, because
Possible.
like right now, I mean, it's the same thing in movies and TV. Like, there's not a whole lot going on and being developed, or at least being worked on with any heavy amount of effort. Because we're undergoing a worldwide crisis right now, and where work is very difficult to do and accomplish in this time. And so when they're trying to kind of get back on their feet, so they do this big presentation, but they don't have anything in the tank because nothing is in the tank.
Yeah.
So I think at least they tried. They came out with some stuff. There's definitely some stuff in it that I'm excited about. I agree. I don't think that was the one they needed to end on,
Yeah.
but I don't really get anything better either. So
I also
Give 'em a
feel
gold
like
you
kind
tried
of
sticker.
they're trying to hype up Godfall a lot more than I feel like I can get hyped up for it. Might be part of my problem with it too, because I'm just like, I don't know. I've watched all of the trailers so far and stuff, and I'm just like, it looks okay. Probably not going to get it, right? It doesn't look
Yep.
great. It doesn't look terrible. So I'm like, I'm not sure why I should care. And
I think one of the biggest pitfalls of that was the fact that they're like marketing it as a PS5 game, which is unfortunate, because if that's what they're marketing for PS5, then there's going to be a lot of people out there who are like, well, I guess I don't really need a PS5.
Right, yeah, I felt that was like really weird at the Game Awards, how they showed that off as literally the first PlayStation 5 gameplay ever. And it was just
Yeah.
like, that, like, I don't see why that couldn't run on like a phone
Or
or
PS4.
PS4. Yeah, I'm just like, it doesn't look bad. I don't know, I'm just like, don't see any good reason to be excited about it, and yeah, it's just weird. But maybe that's just me. Anyways, shall we get into our video game topic for the day?
Oh shit, we're not even. Wow. Okay. Yes.
So,
A lot of news came out.
yeah, now that we're out of all that news, we had a lot of news this week, which is funny because last week our news was Cuphead is on PS4.
Good news. I like it.
It was good news, but that was it. It's funny how that
Sold.
works. So, yeah, so we're going to talk about video games and how to make a good hard mode therein, which is a funny story that Chris and I talked about this on a previous podcast episode that turned out I had the settings not on correctly, and I was only recording his audio and not my own. So,
Oh no.
yeah, we could not actually use that episode, so we were like, let's just save this for another time when we got a couple of guests on or something. So, this should be fun. So, yeah, what do you guys think makes a good hard mode slash, like, is it necessary to make a hard mode? Does a hard mode make a game better or worse, or I don't know, just kind of all the things that go into this. Go ahead, Taylor.
I think we should define this a little bit more, because you've got games that are inherently hard, a la your Dark Souls, Bloodborns, your Neos, and then you have games that are normally okay and then have a specific mode dedicated to increasing.
Yeah, I think mostly what we're talking about is the latter, where you've got like an extra mode to go through at the end after you've already beat it, or if you just want the challenge right from the get-go, then you put it on hard difficulty or whatever.
Actually,
And
as a person who routinely plays games on hard mode for hard mode's sake, I think the best indicator of hard mode done correctly is if I can play in hard mode the first time I've played a game and still have a chance of success. For instance, Breath of the Wild, I never played normal mode. I just played Master Quest the first time I played it. And that was a delightful experience. It felt like that was how the game was meant to be played. Because I actually had to think about food. I had to think about tactics when dealing with enemies. I couldn't just hit them with whatever I had lying around my inventory,
Right.
you know?
yeah, I kind of get
And I
that,
knew
because
nothing
I
about
went
the
back
game going
through,
in.
I got Breath of the Wild on day one, so, at that point the DLC wasn't out. I couldn't play on Master Mode.
Right.
I have played through on Master Mode afterward, and I think Breath of the Wild really has a unique way of going about having a hard mode, too, because the way that it does it really is kind of interesting and almost unique just to Breath of the Wild, that, like, on Master Mode, it's like there's just, the enemies are harder, and the way they heal over time just makes you think about the whole game differently. So I think that was a pretty successful hard mode, especially. I think it was a fun way to go through the game again, and even if that's not your first time, because that's usually how I do. Because I'm more casual on my first playthrough. I'm just like,
see, you're a normal person.
Yeah, I'm just like,
fun.
I don't have time for like all the bullshit that hard mode will do unless I really like a game, and then
But it's not bullshit.
and I'll want to go through it again.
It's just different.
It depends on the game, because sometimes it's just extra hard for bullshit reasons, because they want to make it hard for hard's sake, so they don't really do anything interesting to make it hard. And
yes, and
they just
one
make
way
the
that
enemies
most
have
games
more
make
HP
it
or
not
something
interesting.
dumb.
Yeah,
like
just
that.
the more
Yeah.
hit points thing, where your shit breaks faster. Those are annoying attributes. But in Breath of the
what I
Wild,
like
they do
to refer
that,
to as
but it
art
forces you to approach it differently. And those different approaches are interesting because it forces you to use game mechanics that otherwise you might just ignore.
So I'm gonna agree with both of you on this point with Breath of the Wild specifically, in that, for one thing, I don't think Breath of the Wild is inherently a hard game to begin with. And even with Master Mode, I don't find Breath of the Wild that hard.
Yeah.
But I like what they did with it to increase difficulty, because, as you both pointed out, it makes you think about things differently. It doesn't necessarily, I think, make the game harder. It just changes your approach to how to play the game. And I love that. I think that hard mode doesn't necessarily have to be hard, but it should force you to think in different ways than you normally would. And this comes back to something that I've always maintained in video games, in that I love that sort of thing, and I hate artificial difficulty, aka the Shao Kahn effect, where a video game arbitrarily makes a fight difficult for no other reason than just to be a pain in your ass. And Mortal Kombat, as much as I love the Mortal Kombat series, has always done this with their boss fights. Give Shao Kahn, he's armored through all of his attacks, so he just hits you for free, for no fucking reason. And I get it, and I get that, especially back in the day when MK3 first came out, there's not a whole lot that they can do to make a boss more difficult than it already is, other than better AI, which isn't something that we had back then. And I think it's why I like Dark Souls and Bloodborne a lot, because, again, you could argue that those games aren't inherently difficult for someone, but if the average person is to play a Dark Souls or a Bloodborne game, they're going to get thrashed pretty hard a lot. And only people who are really used to thinking about games differently when they're presented with a challenge or presented with a set of mechanics. So in Dark Souls and Bloodborne, the roll and dodge mechanic as being your savior, your saving grace. And your equipment isn't actually really all that important. You can wear whatever you want in most Dark Souls and Bloodborne games and still beat the game just fine. It's more along the lines of thinking, okay, how do I approach this fight? What does this boss do, or this enemy does, that opens itself up? It makes you think more about how to approach things, as opposed to, I just need to keep swinging until I defeat this boss.
And I think that's the essence of it right there. It changes how you approach challenges. It makes them more interesting therein.
Yeah, so one thing that we talked about last time Chris and I talked about this was I brought up Final Fantasy VII Remake, because it has a kind of a different sort of take on hard modes, because the hard mode for that one isn't available when you start the game. You have to beat the game first, and then you unlock hard mode. But the advantage to that is that the hard mode is actually designed basically specifically for your level capped person. So your level cap in that game is level 50, and every level in the rest of the game on hard mode is just designed as a challenge for a level 50 character. But they're different styles of challenge for that character. And it uses a lot of the same concepts that the core game does, but it kind of expands upon them in some cases. And so I think it had a really unique approach to it. And I really liked going back through that game on hard mode because it specifically was like, it felt like just an end game challenge. It's like in, an MMO or something where you get up to the end game level and now you can do all the quote unquote real challenges, right? And it's just kind of a like, okay, I've done everything else. Now I can do this. So
I think that's a perfectly valid way to do it because the quote unquote hard mode in this case is just a different game. Almost sounds like.
Yeah. And I
have an example of bad hard mode.
Yeah, definitely. Go for it.
So recently I was playing a game called Cthulhu Saves the World, which is just cheap as heck RPG on Steam. I got it for less than $1 or something. But being me, I'm like, I've never played this game before. Let's put it on insane difficulty, which is the difficulty above hard. And obviously it forces me to use all the game's mechanics, but there was definitely a lot of time where I was just grinding for XP so that I could use the game mechanics to move forward.
Yeah.
Difficulty.
That's a kind of a thing where I feel like sometimes difficulty just means more grinding, which was kind of my problem.
But then there's a new challenge.
One of the things I've also been doing recently is replaying...
Memorize the keystrokes.
Right, yeah. Because recently I've also been replaying Tales of Vesperia, which I really like, but on regular mode I forgot just how grindy the Tales games are, and so I put it on easy, not because I couldn't do it, but because I was like, I don't want to dedicate the time necessary to grind this much. I'm like, I already beat most of this game on its original release. I'm just like, I want to have a casual replay and just kind of get through it. I'm mostly here for the story. And
MMOs are notorious for this, and where, for example, with World of Warcraft, which is probably one of the most well-known MMOs in existence, back when Wrath of the Lich King came out, they came out with a instance, which are basically like the 5-man raids and 10-man raids. They came out with a heroic dungeon mechanic, which is basically the same dungeon, but with it's supposed to be quote unquote harder, and you get better loot from it.
Yeah, I remember doing a lot of that back when I played WoW.
Right. So the way that they did this is they basically just made all the bosses and all the fights. They had a couple of additional mechanics that they didn't have in the original fight, but for the most part, they were pretty much cut and dry the same shit, different day.
Yeah.
And they increased the health and the damage of the boss, and that was about it. And granted, most of it in preparing for it wasn't actually like relearning the fight or approaching the fight differently. It was just, we now need a higher gear score to take this on, because if we don't, we're not going to have the stats or the healing or the damage required to take it on.
But that was more than 10 years ago. What World of Warcraft does nowadays is a little bit different.
Yeah,
with their mythics.
But
in fact, I actually play World of Warcraft nowadays, so I know a little bit about this. So nowadays, instead of just giving things more hit points, they do that too, more hit points, more damage, but they also have modifiers on creatures that, for instance, one that killed a lot of my group in the past was, now all of the creatures explode when you kill them. Right. And this is like a random quirk of the thing. Or, look, everything does double damage when it's at this hit points. And so those random quirks, they can combine in ways that force you to rethink how you approach things.
Right. Upgrade. My only point with this is that I think that what World of Warcraft did 10 years ago with Wrath of the Lich King is quite similar to what a lot of MMOs do if they do introduce like a hard mode to their thing. And I think nowadays, modern wise, like I think Final Fantasy XIV does this in a bunch of different ways, is that it's a little more evolved now, but I think MMOs are just as guilty now as they were before of throwing in the artificial difficulty and not caring so much as changing the approach to things, and more along the lines of just saying, we're going to make it harder to make it harder, and we'll give you better rewards for it. But I would agree that there are definitely some out there that have absolutely learned from that, such as World of Warcraft.
Yeah, because it was kind of weird playing at that time, because I played a lot of Wrath of the Lich King. That was when I played the most World of Warcraft, and then I quit after... I got a few characters up to max level in Cataclysm, but I quit after that. But in Wrath of the Lich King, I really kind of did like running the heroic dungeons, just because my favorite thing to do in that was that I like to do dungeons in general. That was my favorite thing to do in the game. And I really hated, like, overworld grinding. Was just...
What was your favorite dungeon in Wrath of the Lich King? I ask this of anybody who's a big Wrath of the Lich King
In Wrath
fan.
of the Lich King, I'm trying to name the... What's the name of it? Pinnacle something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ice Crown Citadel, or... Or is it... It's the one with Malagos, right?
Let's see. Oh, gosh, it's been so long, I don't remember anybody's name or anything.
Which
I'm just
one are
like,
you talking about?
it was like a big old pillar. There was 2 dungeons in it, and one of them was like a pretty close to level 80. You could just do it dungeon if you were level 80, and
Describe the aesthetics.
It was kind of a big old tower thing, I think.
Oculus?
Yeah, Oculus.
Not Oculus.
Is what I think you're talking about.
No.
Yeah, because the second part of
Burmast
Oculus, you
Temple.
fight at the top of you fight at the very top of it, and you fight with dragons and stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember Oculus. That's not it. It was more of a castle kind of a
Utgard
thing.
Keep?
Utgard. Utgard Pinnacle.
Utgard
Yeah, that's what
Pinnacle,
he's
that one, yeah. Yeah, the Keep and the Pinnacle. Both of those were really cool dungeons, and I like how
Mine
they
was
kind of
Halls of
tied it
Reflection.
together, yeah.
Halls of Reflection was my favorite, just because Falric and Marwyn were way cooler than they ever were at any other point in Warcraft when they enter in there, and Falric's just like... whoever they chose, I still don't know to this day who they chose to play Falric as the voice actor, because this was way back when I had only just... I started doing work for Blizzard Entertainment in various ways as a freelancer during Cataclysm. So this was before I started doing anything, got any hints on the background stuff. But man, whoever they cast as Falric, such an insane voice, even without the filter layering they did for the Death Knight. But his lines like, men, women, and children, none survive the Master's wrath. Your death will be no different. I would literally grind the shit out of Halls of Reflection just to hear that voice line every single time. My favorite dungeon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, artificial difficulty.
Yeah, so artificial difficulty is something that Chris and I both talked about, and I think it was funny. We talked about it at some point on the podcast, and we had kind of 2 ways of describing it. That one of them was just like artificially increasing the difficulty by the hit points, or just, it does more damage, just easy stuff like that. And another way we describe... Go ahead, Chris.
It's pretty... My problem with it isn't that I think increasing hit points or damage is necessarily artificial. It's that it's lazy. It makes the game less fun. You're not making the game more difficult in a fun way.
That's why I refer to it as artificial, not because of that, but the laziness.
Because that was my problem with a lot of the Halo games. Because I felt like Halo 1 kind of made the enemies kind of seem smarter, and there was more enemies in a lot of places and stuff like that. And then Halo 2 came along, and you put it on Legendary, and it's just every elite takes 4 clips of assault rifle, and they will kill you in 3 shots of plasma rifle. That's
Halo
it.
1 was
like,
definitely that way too.
Halo 1 was that way, but I
Especially
feel
the
like it
gold.
was a lot worse as Halo got on. In Halo 2 and 3, because Halo 1, I feel like that was still a problem. But I felt like it was doable reasonably on Legendary, whereas in Halo 2 and 3, I did it on Legendary just from grinding the fuck out of it forever, but it, like, a lot of the time I was just asking myself, like, why am I bothering? They just have
So,
more
so what do
nodes.
you so what do you think about difficulty, like not artificial difficulty, but difficulty levels like with Metal Gear Solid and European Extreme, and the mechanics that introduces, such as it game over on alert. People do, or weapons do more damage to you if you do get into alert and you turn that version of it off, or how enemies detect you easier, that kind of stuff.
So it's
what do you
like the
think?
kind of one mistake and you have to restart the game kind of thing?
Not restart the game, but you definitely are done at that point. You have to reload your save.
Reload.
I
and
think
try
there's a
again.
time for that, for like a particular kind of challenge that I'm not like upset about if people enjoy that, but usually I don't enjoy that. But I will say that I have made my own artificial challenges in Zelda particularly. I like to do a lot of 3-heart runs and stuff like that, and I've done like 3-heart Iron Man, like if I die once I'm going to delete my save and start again kind of things, just like that. Just as a kind of a fun challenge, just because I love playing Zelda so much and I like to, mix it up the way that I play it every now and then. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that if that's the kind of challenge that you're into, but 99% of the time that's not the kind of challenge that I'm into. Because, I'm trying to remember what game it was. I think it was one of the Need for Speed games on original Xbox a long time ago that, like, literally, if you made, like on the normal difficulty, if you... I don't remember if it actually had difficulty settings, now that I think about it.
Sounds
But,
like Underground or Most Wanted.
yeah, it's probably one of those,
Maybe
because I
Underground
remember
too.
playing both of those, and Underground too. I haven't played a Need for
Underground 2 is
Speed
my
game in a
brother's
long
favorite.
time, but I played a whole bunch of them on the original Xbox and stuff. Yeah, so, yeah, but it was like one little tiny, like, you take this corner too sharp and you'll, like, accidentally hit, like, a rock or something, then you're totally screwed. You just literally cannot catch up anymore. No matter what car you have, no matter how good of a driver you are in this game, it's like you're just done. And that, to me, in that setting, was not fun. Like, especially in a racing game, I feel like you should have, the ability to come back to some extent. If it's like
Interesting
one
that you bring that
mistake
up,
and you're
because
done.
Mario Kart is infamous for its rubber band effect, where the closer to first you are, the slower your cart goes, and the more in last place you are, faster your cart
Yeah, and
goes.
in Mario Kart 8, it also like gives you better items and different kinds of items depending on what place
Your
you're in.
chance to get
Because
better
like
items.
if you're in first place, you'll pretty much get nothing but green shells and bananas, which you hold behind yourself just so that in case the guy behind you gets another shell or something.
Right.
Okay, I got my last ditch defense. That's the only
Nothing
reason it gives you that.
protects from blue shell.
Yeah, and then last place gets like blue shells and lightning
Beat up
bolts
items
all
a
the
lot.
time, and all the catch-up
Bullet
items, the bullet bill, yeah, and stars and stuff like that. So, yeah. But I kind of like that in Mario Kart, where it's like, you'll get hit by 2 or 3 items in a row. Sometimes it's you just somebody described it to me as you got Mario Karted. I'm like, that's a good way of putting it. It's like,
I do
oh,
not
I
like
hit
those games for that reason.
but it's I don't
Mario
know, because
Kart's-
it adds
so-
this kind of element of chaos to it, that it's like, just because you're the best player doesn't mean that you have to win every time, because of that kind of thing. That's one of the reasons I love Super Smash Brothers as well, is because
Unless you understand
the
how
amount
that
of
thing works and you take advantage of it.
it depends on the situation. Yeah, but it's like. I think it evens the playing field to where, like, if you are the best Mario Kart player, you'll probably still win, right? But other people have some kind of chance of, getting you every now and then or something, which I think makes it more interesting than a lot of racing games, where it's just like, oh, I'm ahead of you, you lose. I have the better car, you lose.
So some form of catch-up mechanic is probably necessary,
Advisable.
but you don't need to go to the extent that Mario Kart does,
Yeah.
where
I don't think that's
game-
necessary for every
catch-up
game, but I
mechanic
think
is
I like it
ridiculous.
okay in Mario Kart, and how casual of a game that is. I think it's very appropriate in Mario Kart.
So how would that work in a game like Need for Speed, though? Because we're talking about a game or Gran Turismo, where it's a game about racing, and where often enough, yes, the better driver wins, but also those drivers with the best cars also tend to have a pretty significant advantage over those who don't. And it's something that I enjoyed about Gran Turismo 3, because I kitted out a PT Cruiser and was beating some Ferraris at certain points, different races. But, you know, in those games, can you necessarily argue that it would make sense to have some sort of catch-up mechanic, or should it just be based purely on your skill as a driver and your ride?
I think depending on the game, I think there's a place for where skill-based driving is like the end-all be-all, but I don't know. It's an interesting question.
It's not a very interesting game when you get ahead and then you just stay ahead and there's not much your opponent can do to catch up.
Snowballing.
I know a bunch of people who disagree with you on that.
So there's a lot of good games that have that element in them
Mhm.
where you snowball, like most RTS games are like that. But the interesting parts of an RTS game are not.
A lot of MOBAs are like that too.
Yeah, MOBAs, RTS games. The interesting parts of those games are not the snowballed parts where someone's win is basically all but guaranteed.
Right.
The interesting parts of those games are
Securing the win before you win.
or the comeback, or
The strategy. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
or the early parts of the game where you're not really sure what's going on yet.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the things I think can go into
Never been hit
those
by the
in
snowball yet.
that kind of game sometimes can be like level design. Because like if there's multiple ways through a course or something like that, which is one of the things I liked about some of the races in, I think there was one of the Need for Speed games or something that like had a specific like mode that it was like a race, but you're going through the city because it's a big open world game most of the time, and then like your objective is just to get to point B, and you can go any way through the city that you want. And I think that kind of a thing is a thing that could work very well. I think it did work. I'm trying to remember which Need for Speed this was now. It might have been Underground.
That sounds a lot like Burnout Paradise.
Okay, I haven't played Burnout Paradise, but I've played several of the Burnout games.
I mean, Underground was a lot like that too, where you're pretty much free roaming. You got into a race or got into something, but Paradise is kind of what made that famous.
Right.
Was that the one?
Air conditioning.
Was that the one where the guy was in a coma? I'm not going to get an answer to that question, am I?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't play Burnout Paradise. I played Burnout, I think the 3 first original Burnout in the trilogy.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I think I played.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think I played all those. Yeah, because 2 was Takedown and 3 was Revenge or something.
3. I think 3 was Takedown.
Maybe 3.
Oh no, you're right. 2 was Takedown, then 3 was Revenge,
Yeah.
and then Paradise that came out after that. Paradise is for a guy in a coma. I don't remember that. I don't think so.
I'm trying to. There was a game like that. I'm trying to remember which it was.
Was it like a racing game?
Yeah, I could have sworn it was like Burnout or like Burnout San Francisco or something.
Maybe. I don't know. Doesn't sound familiar to me. No, I think I am right. Burnout 3, I think, was Takedown, then 4 was Revenge, and then it was Paradise. I gotta look it up now. This is gonna bother me.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, any kind of
Burnout 3 was
other
Takedown.
thoughts on how to make a good hard mode, or what makes a bad hard mode, or artificial hard modes, or anything else on this topic, or should we move to our table topic?
Actually, I do have one last thing
Go ahead.
for what makes a bad hard mode, and I think, Sean, you can relate to this.
Uh-huh.
And that's, I think the key to a bad hard mode is when you fail, but you have no idea why you failed. Or at least you felt like you had no way to see it coming.
Right.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I can get behind that, because I've had that in you know, I'm trying to think
If
if
you
I've had that in a video game before, but I know why you relate that back to me.
I feel
I-
personally attacked.
I definitely agree. Like, if you have no way of learning from your mistake, how are you supposed to know what or learn how to succeed? Like, that's very tough. And I think that any game that introduces that as a feature of its hard mode should just not have had a hard mode to begin with.
All right.
Although that said, Spelunky did have a bit of the second half of that, where it's like you could not have seen it coming on your first time, but the chain
Bashi.
reactions for your demise are just wonderful, and you can learn from
Bashi
them.
and I Want to Be the Boss were infamous for that too. It's just like you have no idea what you're going through in a level until you die 50,000 times, and then you figure it out.
Well,
But you
I want
can't
to.
figure
I
it
want to
out.
be the boss is also kind of a troll game.
No, 100%, but at least they did it right and where you can eventually figure it out. But there are some games where you kind of just got to get lucky, and you will never know until you deep dive into the game's code or you deep dive into an expert designer's opinion on it before you realize, oh, that's what I was supposed to get from it. And you have no way of understanding that without that information. That information is not presented to you in the game, so I don't know.
Like, and the last thing I wanted to end on, because I had a lot to say about this the first time we did this topic, and I had much less to say this time around because I was struggling to think of what I had said originally, is that hard mode design, each mode designing a hard mode is like designing almost a whole other game.
It's like designing a whole another game. Is that what you said?
It's not quite the same as designing a whole nother game, but in the sense that you need to kind of polish up a game's difficulty. There's an intended kind of experience for you to go through and play. You're going to need to do the same thing for hard mode as well, and anything else is just kind of lazy. You can often have a game where someone thought of one mode as being the intended experience to be played, like Halo's heroic mode, and then other modes end up being, including easy modes. I'm including easy modes in this. They end up being not quite as good because they got less attention.
Right.
Because they were like, oh, they just did a numbers tweak. They didn't.
Yeah, that's an interesting kind of a way to kind of turn this topic around. Also, is like as much as you can have an artificial hard mode, you could have an artificial easy mode. Like I feel like is the case in a lot of, like in Doom and stuff like that. I feel like
Most games with easy mode.
yeah, it's like it's just they turn down, everything like that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm sure it works for the people that play on easy modes a lot or whatever. But
the game can end up being less fun overall.
yeah,
And that's the case with easy mode or with hard mode.
and that's kind of what I'm experiencing with Tales of Vesperia, which I was saying, because like it does feel kind of cheap to be going through, because like I don't have to grind, which was my big issue with replaying this game, which was just like I don't have the time to grind. I mean, I could if I wanted to, but I don't want to spend as long as I did the first time on this game, basically, is kind of the way I'm looking at it right now. I'm like, so I want to take away the grind, but now that I'm playing on easy mode, like, boss fights, I don't even care. I'm just like, just B, and I get through it. Like, that's almost all I do the entire game is I'll just use my regular attacks. I don't even hardly pay attention to my weapons or whatever. I'm just like, like every now and then I'm just like I'm a bit of a completionist, so I'm like searching through and getting almost all the treasure chests, and then later I'll be like, oh, I found a weapon, I'll equip this, and then I'll check through all my other characters. I've been like, oh, I'm sitting on 3 weapons that are better than what they're using. What the hell am I doing here? Because I'm on so much autopilot on this game that
You may as well be watching a Let's Play at that point.
almost, but I don't know. I like it better than a Let's Play because I don't know.
Because he's still playing.
Yeah, playing it myself.
But you could play
feels
something
more...
else on the side while watching a Let's Play.
Yeah, but then I wouldn't be paying attention to it.
You
I
could
mean,
be
you say
trying
that, but I'm
magic
on a game right now.
Right. I don't know.
Yeah, but having a conversation while playing a game and paying attention to like a story of a game while playing
Right,
another
yeah, because
game.
that's the big thing
There's
about
different things.
about the Tales series and like most JRPGs in general. Like, I'm there for the story almost exclusively. You know, I'm not huge into the gameplay of most JRPGs. Some of them I really, really like, but mostly I'm there for the story. Anyways, shall we get into our table topic?
Yay.
Heck yeah.
So, table topic for the week is kind of related here. How challenging should a tabletop RPG be for players and the GM? And what Chris and I kind of decided last time was for the GM into this question, we kind of mean like, should it entail a lot of complicated design? Should it be hard to run in the moment and kind of stuff like that? So, who wants to go first?
That is a gnarly topic.
So I'll start us off to make up for my earlier silence. For the player side of things, I think the answer is deceptively simple in that it's hard for me to answer, but it's easy for me to answer. It's hard to do in practice, is make the game the difficulty that is appropriate for the players at your table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or appropriate to the game you want to run, and hope that the players are willing to adapt.
Right.
As might be the case with some games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for me, I feel like it should be hard enough that they have the possibility of death and the possibility of like total failure and the world comes crashing down around them, but not so hard that like I don't think there should be a TPK every friggin' session, right? So I feel
It's
like
not a TPK if one guy survives.
technically true.
Technically, it's the best kind of truth.
But actually, example to share is when we first started playing our high light lethality D&D games with another DM, we had a few training wheels mechanics that were there to kind of ease us into it. And when we started, when we first started out, you could buy a shield. And a shield had a special property, which it is the training wheel property, and that is that instead of taking damage from an attack, you could just have your shield explode. It just soaks the damage for you, gets destroyed, and it's gone. So what did we do? We brought as many shields as we could carry to the dungeon. But even though we were doing that at the time, we were always thinking to ourselves, like, how the heck would we ever get through this game without this training wheel?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, at the time, is like, how the hell are we ever going to get through this game without this training wheel? But over time, we learned more nuances about the game, and we were able to actually play it eventually without those training wheels quite effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happened mechanically with that is that the training wheel basically gave us enough breathing room where what would have been outright failures were partial successes or partial failures, which in that partial nature allowed us to analyze what we did wrong. It allowed us to analyze what we could do better, and it allowed us to essentially learn the game instead of just getting our asses kicked all day and being like, I don't know what's happened.
So,
like playing with older brothers in Age of Empires 2.
Right. So in correlation with this question, is there something to be said about systems that require more of a learning curve? Is that necessarily a good or a bad design choice, because, like, to some extent, I'm sure that people will feel satisfied after they have gone through this to, you know, now that you've gone through that, you can go through these kinds of campaigns and probably not die very much, you know, depending on the campaign and whatever happens. But is there something to be said about systems like 5th edition D&D where it's accessible to any player of any skill level, that they can go through it and they probably won't die unless their DM is a dick?
I call that the gateway tabletop. They start with 5th edition, and then eventually their DM might look at alternatives to Wizards of the Coast once they get sick of their shit. But that's another topic.
There's an option to get sick of.
There's a lot of feeling behind that statement. There's a story there. I think
Praise the OSR.
I think this goes back to what I was talking about with artificial difficulty in video games, and how there's gotta be room for failure. And I think that as long as you are capable of learning from the mistake that was made, it's good and it's okay to have harder difficulty.
But one of the things that I think makes it different in a tabletop as opposed to a video game is that in a video game, when you die and respawn, you're the same guy in the same world, same setting, everything's the same. And in a tabletop, like, if you die, you're pretty much, like, your character died, right? That's part of the story now. So I feel like that almost changes... Go ahead.
But you're mistaking what I'm saying for being, you know, the character learning from their mistake. What I'm talking about is the player. Now, obviously, you know, if you as your character, you know, Biblios the Biblioteca, runs into a dungeon cave with his 3 party members and gets wiped by the dragon sleeping inside, you know, obviously the player is going to learn from that, but Biblioteca is probably going to be in heaven right now saying, fuck me, man.
Should have stayed in the library.
Right, and obviously there are times where a character absolutely can learn from their mistakes, and it's up to the player to be able to RP that out. But from a bottom line standpoint, we're still players playing games.
Yeah.
So when we walk into those situations, and the DM says, "This is going to be a Dark Souls like game where if you fuck up, and it's going to suck," you know. Then okay, when you make that first screw up, your party TPKs, you fully grasp that, okay, I truly understand the extent of what I'm doing and what I'm playing now, and now I will approach those situations a lot less gung-ho, let's kill the enemy, and more, we should think about this. And I think that's fine. I think that having, you know, and again, going back to what I think Chris said earlier, is that as long as we have a conversation about what type of game we're playing beforehand, or what that kind of game is, you know, obviously we've come to an agreement and we know going in, okay, this is what I can expect and this is what I should expect, as opposed to just walking into it blindly and saying, why did that happen?
Right. And to an extent, I've had experiences in these kind of tabletops that we're talking about where that kind of happened to me, where I kind of came into these and I'm just like, you know, doing everything that I know as a role player is theoretically what nothing objectively stupid most of the time. And, you know, sometimes I'm still just like, oh, we did something and it ended up with a player dead. So it's kind of a thing that sometimes I'm like, okay, this is fine, and sometimes I'm like, I feel like it changes it as a role player, because my big thing in games is that I get, you know, invested in my characters, and I really like who I'm playing and stuff like that. And if I'm playing,
then you better protect them with your life.
Right, but if I'm doing something in the eyes of my character that is not necessarily something that
you as a player would do.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like that's an appropriate decision to make, and in some kinds of games, I feel like that is objectively incorrectly playing.
But when you make that decision, you're fully aware of the decision that you're making. You know that, okay, as Spammo Man the player, I hate everything about this decision because I'm probably going to die. As your character, Biblioteca, you know, this is what my character would do. I need to make this decision because that's what the character would do. And you're fine with that ultimately as a player because you know that you're doing what you set out to do in the first place, which is RP this character. You know, you are really invested in him, and unfortunately, you know, sometimes the dice be what the dice be. But, you know, at the end of the day, you would probably argue that was a satisfying encounter, even if your character died, because you lived up to it, right?
Yeah, that kind of depends, because I've had a lot of experiences like that where I've had a character death and I've really, you know, made it mean something. But I've had other kind of experiences where it's like I'm just playing the way that I would play normally, making decisions for which may backfire on me, but in certain kinds of systems I've played it where you have one thing backfire that you thought, okay, this has a chance of backfiring, but now it's not, oh, you take some damage, you fall off a cliff, you have to roleplay your way out of a awkward scenario where you accidentally hit on somebody's mother, you know. It's like, you're fucking dead.
Pathfinder. Sorry.
That is
you can
one
refer to the specific incident. It's fine, Sean.
Well, I'm not sure
As
which.
Chris has
I'm not
said
sure
many
which
times,
incident
you should
I'm.
see your death coming from a little ways off.
Yeah.
It
Right,
should
but
never just spring up
if
Jack
you
in the Box.
start-
Like, what? I'm dead now? Okay.
Yeah, but
You
if
guys
you
watch Critical
start,
Role, right?
So here's the thing, though, with if you start in 5th edition in your gateway D&D, as you put it, then
Mine was 4th edition.
Right.
Death was
But
never...
hey,
Right,
but hey,
yeah,
5th edition can be as hard as you want it to
Well,
be.
yeah, that's-
Like, I've played some 5th edition games where my party just gets bunghole.
yeah, that's true. But like, if you
Bad.
start with one of these with a relatively normal DM, I don't know how to exactly say normal because I feel like every DM is totally different, but that's another rabbit hole for another day.
Average?
Yeah, an average DM with average difficulty in 4th or 5th or even 3.5 Pathfinder hero system. I feel like if you just roleplay your character, then 99% of the time you won't die even if you fuck something up and there's a repercussion.
I 100% disagree in the case of Pathfinder. Pathfinder, some dumb shit happens all the time in your DM's control and outside of his control. I love me some Pathfinder, but man, was that system broken sometimes.
I don't know, I came from
Sometime.
3.5 into Pathfinder, so it just felt like a new expansion to 3.5 for me. So,
Well, I mean, let's be real too, though. 3.5, I mean, 3.5 was my first D&D, and then I went back and I tried advanced D&D, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm more of a 3.5.
yeah.
And then obviously 4E, Pathfinder 50, Star Wars Saga, D20 edition,
Right.
all that stuff. And I gotta say, like, 3.5, like, again, dumb shit can just happen. And if you have a good DM, you know that they're going to not let, you know, stupid dice mechanics rule everything, and they'll find a way to arbitrarily sometimes make things okay if the situation is bad enough. But at the end of the day, 3.5 had some real interesting mechanics. You know, for lack of a better way to phrase that, there are some times where I was playing 3.5, I was like, I hate this game. And at the same time, you know, I stuck with it, and I love D&D to this day. But 3.5 is definitely one of my fond memories. But there were many a time where I just, like, something would happen, I was just like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore.
I think that's more of your clear expectations were not set, is what
Yeah.
that sounds like to me. and
No,
that you were
100%.
surprised by game mechanics or things just didn't work out the way you expected them to, which is a very shitty way to die. The shittiest, in fact. You're like, I thought
mean-
when I lit the gunpowder it would explode. And you're like, no, it just burns. No, I'm dead. That sucks.
I mean, I was also 9 or 10 when I first got into 3.5. I had been into like our role playing mechanics and stuff like that, and role playing games before that. But when I got into D&D and 3.5 specifically, I was like 9 or 10. So like, you know, I was not used to going to my DM being like, okay, what kind of game are we playing? What kind of game or the DM coming to us and saying that kind of stuff. And I think back then, a lot of DMs were still new to it too, and not all of them also did that. Like nowadays, you go on to like Roll20 or you go into homebrew games all the time, and the very first question the DM generally asks you, and again, we're talking about like average DMs, like across the board, not necessarily specific ones, but you know, the first question they ask is, okay, what are you looking for from this game? And that never happened to me when I was 9 or 10. It was always, this is the game we're playing, here are the rules, learn the manual,
Yeah.
have fun. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. There were a lot of times where the clarity of my expectations for the game was not met.
And that, I mean, I think what I'm referring to more is not beginning expectations, beginning of the game, but like your expectations for the results of your actions. I know there's many times, at least in my game, where like someone does something and I'm like, okay, this happens, and I'm like, what? But this should have happened. And it usually, sometimes it's mechanical things, sometimes it's a physics thing, etc. And usually you have to be like, okay, either I'll let you take that back and nothing bad happens because that sucks. Especially if it's like a game mechanics thing, like, oh, I just don't understand how that spell works, for instance.
Sure.
Or you can say, okay, it works this time, but now you know.
I think
So
that
take
also
it
boils
away.
down to your specific DM too, because there's,
Yeah.
you know, there's that line where there are some DMs who are just like, are you sure you want to do that? And try and give you all these hints.
Okay, a little sidetrack here. Don't ever say, "Are you sure you want to do that?" as a hint. If
Yeah.
the player doesn't understand something clearly, say,
Lay it out.
"Okay, if they seem like they're doing something insane or stupid, you should say, okay, here is the situation you're in. That this is what this action this is what this action would probably do. Do you want to do that? Don't just be like, are you sure you want to do? Because not everyone has the same clear mental picture as the DM does.
Yeah, fair enough. And that
Or the
again,
same picture.
that boils down to the specific DM, because I mean, I would argue that there are DMs who are very successful with that, and then there are DMs who are not so successful with that. I think, you know, and obviously this is something that a trope at this point where people refer to it, but like Matthew Mercer is very good with the "are you sure you want to do that" kind of thing, and leading his players to know that, hey, if you follow through with this, not everything is probably going to be as you expect. A la Kiki jumping off of a fucking cliff 250 feet to her death as a goldfish.
Well, if someone says, "Are you sure you want to do that?" I'm going to be like, "What?" My first question as a player will be, "Wait, why shouldn't I do that?"
Yeah.
Right.
Or it'll be, "Yeah, I know it's stupid, but I'm doing it anyway."
Sure. And that's completely valid as a player to respond like that. And again, it's the DM's special responsibility and special role as the purveyor of a campaign to know his players, his or her players, and know that, you know, if I say this to one of my players, are they going to react the way that I am trying to help them? Or are they going to react to it in a way that is probably still going to get them killed? And everybody, you know, everybody is different. And I think that, you know, it's very dependent on your group, and it's why it's so important to establish kind of game mechanics before you start a game than to just blindly jump into it and say, okay, I'm here for the ride and whatever happens, because a lot of the times those same people end up at the end of the ride going, fuck, I hate this. You know?
You have to reaffirm those mechanics consistently throughout the game. And if someone does something that seems bonkers to you, you have to be like, wait. So you're jumping into that pit of lava? Did I hear you right?
You're like, "Oh, it's a pit of lava." I thought
it's
it was
not
hot
dangerous,
Kool-Aid.
man. What do you mean I died instantly? It's lava. What? It was lava? Yeah? I thought it was a water moat. Oh. Awkward.
Sucks for you.
No, I'd let him take it back if that happened to me.
Right, yeah.
I would have. If you thought it was like Kool-Aid,
Yeah, that's, I feel like, another rabbit hole we could have. We have a lot of those. Like, how often should the GM let players take back dumb decisions? It's gonna
and
put
when
that
they
on
have
for a
no idea
future
what
topic.
they did, but their character would know.
If it's
Character sees lava, player sees water.
Entirely dependent on group, I think. Again, yeah, a lot of D&D questions really boil down to the individual groups that are playing. Like, not
But
it's
some are
why
bad.
5e. Well, I agree, but like with it's the reason why 5e is probably the most accessible version of D&D ever, is because they pulled back so much and they understand that on a base level, the people that play their game are so diverse and so different in their approaches and the way they want games to be and the way that they handle games, that they need to create a system that is available to everyone in as many ways as possible. And I think that is one of 5e's greatest successes, and I will think it is one of the better versions of D&D forever for that reason.
it is the Great Compromise edition.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's just what's necessary in order to have a good time. Like, yeah, there's a lot of times where I wish this was more specific in its mechanic, or I wish this was a better mechanic. But at the end of the day, I look at it and I'm like, well, I got to do everything that I wanted because the rules were so freeform, and I was able to, certain things are very specified and detailed, like the way a spell works and stuff like that. But there's also this open-endedness to it that allows not only the DM to be as creative as they like, but the players as well.
Cool. Is there anything last minute to say on this topic?
I'm sure I could go on forever. I could probably write a goddamn book.
You
Right?
Nick.
I'd read it.
I think we have started writing a book.
I mean, I wrote a book that has mechanic. Oh, not by myself, obviously, but I could write a book on like the finer nuances of this stuff.
The fine art of DMing.
The fine art of DMing. Your game enjoyable.
Step 1,
If you do, I'll
drink a
read it.
beer.
Throw a torch
Step
at something,
2,
make it hit.
pretend you know what you're doing. There's my book. That'll be $5.50.
Step 1, throw all plans out the window the second the game starts.
Right.
Well, no. Step 1, don't make concrete plans.
Yeah, don't do it to begin with.
Yeah, like, what are you doing? They're just gonna break.
Just notes. Be like, if they do this.
If they do
That's
this,
actually
then
literally
this.
how I
If they-
do my campaigns. I'm like, if they do this, then this happens. If they do this, then this happens. And then
I don't even do that,
they
actually.
never do any of the things
Any
that I
of
write
that.
down.
Nope.
But
And that's why I never even do that. I'm just
Right.
like, there's these things, they have stats,
But-
they're in the world, they have personalities, go.
But because I have these notes, then, no matter what they do, I can wing whatever, they do end up doing, because I know how they'll react in, these 3 situations that I planned for. And then in the 4th situation that I didn't plan for, I can infer based off of the situations I did plan for what the outcome should be. So
This is why
Motives,
I write
man.
an overarching story. Like, whenever I DM, it's always an overarching story. I build the complete world first, and then I look at what my players have given me in terms of like backstory and things like that, and then I incorporate those elements wherever I can, where that makes sense. And then that way, like, if a player says, no, we want to go this direction, and all my story stuff is that direction, I still have something I can play with.
yeah, because I've been in
Or
campaigns
hopefully
that
guide them
kind
back
of work
towards
like
that direction.
right. Yeah,
I
because
don't
I've
even write a story.
I've been in campaigns where like
Write a world.
the story is this direction and the players go this direction, and the DM is just like, okay, I have the world built, so you get to an open field. We're like, okay, we're gonna.
It's full of potatoes that want to eat you. You wonder why there's no farmers, and now you
No,
know
it's
why.
not that interesting sometimes. I've been in campaigns where it's like, okay, we're gonna do this, and then you do that, and there's just nothing there because they didn't prepare anything there because they expected you to follow the story, and it's like,
There
why
was
did you
something I
expect
did
that,
similar to
you
that.
fool?
I deliberately did a red herring in one of my campaigns once where I basically labeled an area of the map that was like a title of an area as title of a space that was like super mysterious. Like, you know, any RPG player ever got a cool name, probably got something there that's interesting.
Right?
They go there, it's literally as it was described, and that's it. There's nothing there that was super interesting, no intrigue, no mystery. It was a red herring, and my players were just like, huh? Not what we expected.
I have
Like,
some
well-
stuff like that. I make like D100 tables and stuff just for fun sometimes, and I have like a D100 table of like random encounters, and like some of them are just like you meet a very shifty merchant, and he's a merchant that sells you stuff, and he's just really shifty, and they assume that there's something interesting about him. No, it's just a merchant.
He's just
Or
full of
you
shit.
meet a sexually aggressive beholder.
Well, that's
A
probably new.
sexually aggressive
Oh.
beholder.
That was a different thing on the same chart.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So I think her name was Bertha, and she was just down on her luck, and she needed some dough, and it was an honest
Like
mistake.
beholders.
Yeah. You know, so she started working at this brothel that the party did not know was a brothel when they came upon it. They thought it was just a regular hotel. And so one of them spent a night in the room with the beholder, and the
In
beholder...
Big Bertha's warm embrace.
Yes, Big Bertha came. Well, then I think they, like...
What the fuck?
I think they were a pretty high-level party at that point, so I think they just, like... I think, like, one of them attacked her, whoever was trying to get raped by the beholder, and then... and then, like, the rest of the party, like, just burst through the walls and shit, just
That will
like, we're killing
demonetize
it!
the video.
Look,
Beholder
all I gotta
rape.
say is- you know, all I gotta say is that sex with a beholder is probably pretty interesting.
Probably.
How does
Consider-
it work?
All the effects of its eyes,
is
man,
my
it can do
favorite.
some naughty things to you. What can I say?
How many holes can it penetrate at once?
Enough.
The stun ray is going to come in handy.
Right?
Oh God, that. Oh no.
Now you can't get away.
Hey, turn off your
That
anti-magic cone
illusionized.
so I can get it up, would you? Invigorate! Invigorate!
my magical Viagra is not working. Oh man.
And now I think we've come to the ending segment of the podcast where we just talk about inane bullshit until somebody says something really awkward. And then
That's the other
It's
book
already-
we should write.
The what?
Sex
you
with the
gonna-
Beholder, a treatise.
I'd read that.
So, I'm not,
Go ahead, Chris.
Sean, I don't think you're gonna top beholder rape.
The comma beholder.
That's true. I
Man.
guess Beholder Rape is a pretty
I
good
have
place to cut off
so
the
many
podcast,
issues
but we're still
with
going.
this
So.
beholder. Like,
sure the
what
beholder
are
has
the
issues.
motives for this beholder? to
Surprisingly,
bring
I
it
don't
to this
think the
point?
Beholder tried to rape our buddy Josh, because for some reason, like, in every one of our... I think we literally have, like, 4 different DMs in our group that have, at one point, made an encounter that, for some reason, randomly tried to rape our buddy Josh's character. Whether it was a
I've never
man
had
or
an
a
I'm
woman
pretty
at
sure
the
this
that.
time.
podcast should have ended. Should have
20 minutes
ended
ago.
about 5 minutes ago.
It could
Look,
have,
Beholder-
but, you know, we weren't...
Look.
I hadn't introduced the segment, Chris. I have to introduce the random bullshit segment. It's like... I'm the host. I have to be hospitable and tell everybody what's going on and when to drink.
Look, beholder sex matters. Okay. Shit, I'm out.
Oh, dare you? That's okay. I'll drink for you.
I've been out for a while, sadly.
I'll drink for you
There's
too.
only one beer in the
You
fridge.
you needed more for this conversation.
I don't know. I just have so many issues with like
So many questions.
those concepts.
I guess we
like,
did
being
forget to
in a
shill all of
game.
our stuff. So, as always, I'm
Like a
Sean Michael
beholder is
Patrick
not.
Thompson, and I'm the host of Drink to the Past. You can catch me on Twitter and on twoguys.playingzelda.com. I just wrote an article that'll probably make everybody flip their shit about Last of Us Part 2, because people are bitches about that game.
Everybody.
So check that out on twoguys.playingzelda.com. And we got our special guest, Taylor, is back. So hopefully he'll come back
My name is-
again.
Yeah,
Taylor's
for sure.
back.
My name is Taylor Wells. My Twitter is @GIF_Bluehawk. That's also my Twitch if you want to check that out. I stream occasionally whenever I have time. Yeah, that's my stuff.
Yeah. And of course, we got Chris and Nick of the repute of making an RPG system. Shill your shit, Nick. Quit being so modest.
So recently, 10footpole.org wrote a review of Tomb of the Frostwalker. It was good before he did the review, but now that he did the review, people believe me. So go check it out. It's not even my good stuff, but it's still good.
And
I just need you to write that book
I'm
first.
Chris, terrified screeching Audette.
I thought you were going to say Chris changed his profile picture from a flapper girl, Audette.
Oh yeah,
So your
okay.
profile
I do
picture
have a
is-
story for that. We'll save it for the bullshit after I promote myself.
Okay.
But first, I co-wrote 5 Cataclysms Core Rules Beta Edition with Nick here. We did that thing together. I also wrote the adventure House of Flowers. You can pick both of those up for pay what you want on DriveThruRPG. It'll remind you of a certain fantasy game. It'll remind you of D&D. It's very similar to OD&D. But there are a lot of individual additions that make the game worth picking up. Such as Nick's town improvement minigame.
Town Improvement Guide. Does your starting town suck balls and your DM isn't creative, or is just plain lazy? Use the Town
I feel
Improvement
called
Guide to
out.
spruce the heck up.
Shit, I'm gonna buy it just for that.
Wait. Let me go read the actual introduction. Excuse me.
No, that one is perfect.
Right, because yes, my introduction towns are always super lazy design. I'm just like, okay, plot hook and get out of here.
Is that why all of D&D always starts in a tavern?
Yes, literally
There
every
it is.
adventure
Okay.
I make starts in a tavern. Like, even
All right, here we
mid-campaign
go.
adventures, I'm just like, I put the plot hook in the tavern, and the players always go there, every time. Never even have to,
where you get
like,
plot
hint
hooks.
towards, like, so where are you guys gonna go today? Are you going to investigate around the jail? Or, and, you know, I'm just like, okay, guys, what do you do? And they're like, we're gonna go to the pub. That's it. Every time. It works. It ain't broke. I ain't fixing it.
So if this piques your interest anymore, the actual written entrance to this is Town Improvement Guide. Does your town suck? Did your referee dump your sorry ass on the frontier where amenities are thin and prospects are sparse? Well, fret no longer, my dear adventurer, for you can now, with the aforementioned ref's approval, invest in your town to transform it from a hole in the ground to a thriving city complete with steamworks and grumpy wizards. That's the tagline.
I am purchasing this.
I do intend
You
to
can-
write the
you can
Town
pick it
Improvement
up for
Guide
free.
separately.
You can I would say pay
Can be
$0
free.
for it, and then if you like it, go hand me and Nick actual dollars.
Oh, okay. I'll do that.
Actual dollars.
It's worth it for $0.
Where can this be found again?
This is on.
DriveThruRPG
DriveThruRPG. All right.
under 5
5
Cataclysms.
Cataclysms.
Yeah.
Yes.
Core Rulebook Beta Edition.
Yeah.
How long's it going to be beta for? I don't know.
Until you.
Oh, it has a drug
Wow.
system, too.
Until one of
Grips
you
from
decides
Rimworld.
that you're the dominant writer and becomes the alpha.
I mean, I've decided I am, but
It's a bad
I'm also
joke I have
lazy.
to drink. All right, so now is it time for the random bullshit about Chris's profile picture? Chris, first,
Yeah.
before you explain why your profile picture has changed, why was it a flapper girl in the first place?
So that was my character in Call of Cthulhu. Elena Keatling. She survived like a surprising number of like incidents
by not being there.
by not being there a lot of the time. Although that first incident, she was in the thick of it with bugs literally slicing off allies' heads outside the room while she was trying to patch somebody up. But in the last adventure, she got infected with brain spores. And these brain spores happened to cause hallucinations that had her see a forest. Except they weren't really hallucinations, because if you could see the forest and the things in it, the forest could interact back with you. At one point, she and Nick's character got in a fight where they started trying to eat each other, and after they both snapped out of it somehow, without one of them killing the other, she got tied up in the back seat of a car. While she was begging her friend to kill her because the brain spores were taking over her head, the driver, not being infected with brain spores, drove through one of the invisible trees. And her body smashed into the back seat and went flying out the back window in pieces.
Because the tree effectively clipped through the car and everyone else who couldn't see the trees, ripping Elena Keatling out the back seat and crushing her to a pulp.
And then the other people infected with brain spores got out of the car and started eating her. So
No, I dodged out of the car. I dove out the passenger side door.
Yeah.
I was like, shit, tree! And then we ate her, because insanity in Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
So Flapper Girl's now dead.
She dead.
R.I.P.
So-
Alas,
Just have to
poor
play
Flapper
your
Girl.
respects.
Yeah. F.
Was
I'll
tasty.
drink one for you.
I don't know. I hated that character. She was really, really, really annoying. Really, really annoying.
She had the moral compass of a normal person, and thus was unsuitable for RPG
A
adventure.
normal person by your figuring. You just kept yelling at people for the bad shit they did while offering no alternatives besides do nothing.
Well, instead
Sounds familiar.
of shooting
Immensely
cops for no
aggravating.
reason, you could have snuck away. Or hid.
You don't like shooting cops for no reason?
We were hiding when they
I'm
found
fine with
us. That is exactly what we were doing.
Just make no more noise.
They're the ones who threatened to make our characters unplayable with prison sentences.
Well,
And
then
we left
you
one
just
of them
have
alive.
to restart the adventure in jail, wouldn't you?
Not in that game. I have some issues with how that game's designed, but it's still playable.
This conversation isn't awkward enough.
Enjoyable.
I'm like looking for a place to cut it off, and nobody's saying anything awkward. It's just like regular D&D talk.
What sexually
Beholder
aggressive
sex.
beholder wasn't awkward enough?
No, that was plenty awkward, but I mean, we've already moved past it. So it's like
Have we really?
Now we have to.
Does
yeah,
anyone ever really move past that?
I was just about to ask.
I could tell you about the brothel I wrote into my content that no one's seen yet because of COVID making us not play. It's full of flaming hot chicks, let me tell you.
Are they
Their
literally on
elementals are
fire?
not sex partners. I think that's
Elementals are not sex
literally
partners.
in the rule book.
Oh yeah, there's also a carousing table in the Five Cataclysms rulebook
There are
that
two
lets you
carousing
gain
tables.
experience for essentially spending money, getting drunk in character, and having misadventures. One of the results literally says fire elementals are not ideal sex partners. Take damage.
So is a fire elemental like a
Unfortunate.
worse sex partner than Beholder?
Yes,
Like the
why?
beholder at least has like fleshy bits.
they'll
But
merely
what if
stun
what if you're resistant to fire? Then sex with an infernal is no problem.
That would be
Yeah, and then it's
hot.
hot.
What do you interact with there?
Bad pun, drink.
Does fire elemental like have physicality to it?
I don't know, ask Flame Princess. See what Finn sees in her.
I don't know, like
Yeah,
the
I'm really
Beholder
scared that
would
that's
like
probably
have the
34.
potential to like, you know, turn you to stone or laser you and shit. So like, would that be better or worse than all the fire damage?
But at least with the beholder, she'll never take her eyes off you.